Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Real Effective Answers for Life with your host, Tammy K, where we deal with real life, real people, and real answers for those difficult questions that many will not address. With every discussion planned, we pray that it brings insight, hope, healing, and deliverance as we keep it real so God can deal and we can heal. And today, in honor of Mother's Day, I have a very special guest with me, my one and only, my youngest daughter, Rachel, and she prefers to go by Ray, but I am so very excited and encouraged to have her here with me. And before we get started with anything, we first just want to say Happy Mother's Day. And we're going to start off just generation to generation, just having a conversation about motherhood and what it means for me as a mother and what being a mother to Ray means. And, we all know many of the scriptures and we can quote them like the back of our hands, Psalms 127:3, where it talks about children are heritage of the Lord and the fruit of the womb is his reward. And so how the children are a reward for parents as a whole, not just mothers, but since we're talking about Mother's Day, they are the reward of our womb and they are the blessing of our womb. And we are honored and entrusted with our children, and we cannot take that lightly. We cannot just take for granted that because we're the parents that we can do whatever, say whatever, and act however, and it not affect or impact our children and even impact how God feels about how we're treating our children. Proverbs 31:28-29, it says that her children rise up and they call her blessed, and her husband also, and he praiseth her. And many daughters have done virtuously, but she excels them all. And not because of her beauty, not because of the materialistic things, the way that she looks or the makeup or the way that she dresses, but she excels them all in the way that she cares for and nurtures her family and meets each and every one of their individual needs. And so we're going to just talk about that just very briefly, pull out a couple of scriptures that are commonly quoted and just talk about them from generation to generation. One of the first ones that I think of, I don't know about you, Rachel, is Ephesians 6:1, because that's one that's commonly quoted, where it talks about children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. What does the word obey mean to you?
To obey means to respect the authority that God has given you as my parent. And how do I put this into words? Yeah, just to respect the authority that God has given you as my parent. And, when you tell me to do something, it's not just because I shouldn't do it just because you told me to. However, it's just a matter of you're my parent, you have authority. And if it's wrong, of course, I'm not to do as you say, but just out of respect, just do as you say.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And that was a very key thing that you just said. Obey me and do what I tell you to do as I lead you in the Lord. But as your parent, if I'm leading you away from God, then yes, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. No, you should not obey that. And of course, no parent truly loving their child is going to purposely mislead them astray from God anyway. So I could not agree with you more. And so on the flip side of that, what do you think? Well, first, let's just say, what do you think disobey means?
To go against your authority.
Okay. And what things, real talk, what are some things that cause you to challenge that authority? What are some things, just you as a teenager, just in general, whether it's, personal encounters we've had or just general scenarios that you know of? What are some of the things for you that as a teenager, whether you, your friends, however, makes you want to question or to go against that authority?
Well, if it's not making sense to me, then I'm gonna question. I want to know, and sometimes it's just the delivery, and sometimes what you tell me to do something, like why, like why do I have to? Because, I mean, sometimes it is me being disrespectful and disobedient, but most of the time it's just me being curious as to why.
So in other words, kind of doing away with that old way of thinking that, you do what I say, just because I said do it. I'm the adult, do what I say. And more or less, you're questioning, but not in an argumentative way, but to gain understanding. And that makes sense, because it's kind of like you tell a child not to touch the stove. Well, of course, now you've sparked that curiosity and they want to touch that stove, until you explain to them that you touching the stove could possibly cause you to get burnt, or could possibly cause, you to get burned or get hurt. It's going to keep that curiosity there. And you're your mother's anyway. According to my mom, I was that child that was at 3 years old. Where did electricity come from? And why does it go through the wires? And where did the wires come from? And so for you, make it make sense. You need to understand the why not, so that you don't. And so sometimes as parents, us being willing to explain the why, or even if you don't have time in that moment to explain the why, then later on at a more convenient time, take the time to explain why. Don't always take your children questioning you as being argumentative or being disrespectful or bucking up against your authority. And it's human nature. I mean, just as adults, if someone tells you to do something, sometimes it's human nature. If you're on your job or whatever, okay, well, I'll do this, but why are you wanting me to do this? Or what's the purpose behind it? Or what's the reason behind it? So taking the time to explain the why sometimes can do away with that argument or that seeming disrespect and frustration. So I totally get that. And then, there's also Ephesians 6, the second through the third verse, and it says to honor, to honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. And then verse 3 says that it may be well with you and you may live long on the earth. And so, okay, we were talking about disobedience, but what does honor mean to you?
To honor means to understand that God placed you and my dad in my life for a reason. He entrusted you all with me, and therefore I have to respect you all. I have to respect you guys as my parents, because that's who God has chosen for me, and I respect God with my whole heart. So therefore, whatever He gives to me or whoever He blesses me with or a thing, I respect it.
Very good. Okay. And on the flip side of that, what do you think dishonor means?
Dishonor, to take away said respect. Like, say for example, if we just got into an argument and I'm running off at the mouth with my friends, which I'm not going to act like I haven't done before, just out of frustration, that's a dishonor, because it's like I'm taking away, or I'm not respecting you all enough, and I'm not honoring you guys. I'm respecting you all.
Okay. And do you think that, because this is something that, another way of saying honor would be to respect, because you can obey your parent. You can do what they tell you to do and still not honor them. You can still not respect them. You can obey them out of just obedience, you know what I mean? And out of, because, okay, I know I have to do this, but it doesn't mean that you have that respect for them, to honor them. And so what do you think dishonor means? Or what are things that would cause you to like dishonor, or even though, okay, I'm being obedient because I have to be, but what are things that maybe would cause you, or maybe friends where you lose that respect for your parent, or you lose that, reverence for your parent?
When I feel like I'm not being heard, like, okay, I'm listening to you, I'm hearing you all, I'm doing what you're asking me to do. However, I just don't feel like I'm being respected, if I'm being honest. Sometimes feeling like you guys don't respect me, not only just like as a human being.
Okay, and that's fair, and that's a very valid point, and we've talked about it, because I grew up old school, and it was you do what I say, you ask no questions, point blank, period, end of story. And so, in learning and in allowing God, the blessing of having you at 39 years old or 38, 39 years old, and learning how to break away from some of the former teachings that I feel like I was taught that were not right, that were not conducive for proper parenting or godly parenting, and allowing God to teach me a new way, And so certainly I know that I've had those times too where I'm just like, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, or whatever's going on. And I'm like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. Just do what I say do, or just, and that's not always the right way to handle the situation. And I certainly understand that, some people feel like respect should just be automatic just because of the position or the title. I've never agreed with that, even as a child. And so I certainly...
Respect is earned, not given.
I agree with you 300% on that. And I don't care what title or position you carry, you have to earn that respect. Like I said, that child may automatically obey you just because, and I don't know if you've ever heard that story where it talks about how, like, the parent is talking about how their children obey them, and, they tell the child stand up, their child is standing up, but the child in their mind is they're still thinking, well, I'm still sitting, in my mind, you know what I mean? So it's almost like that rebellion is still there. They are physically from the outside given the appearance of obedience, but the respect, which is a matter of the heart, issue of the heart, is not there for that parent in those situations. Is I'm doing what you said do because I got to, but not because I love you enough or honor you or respect you enough to value what you're saying to me, and then obey out of that relationship versus just out of strict obedience. And so we definitely, as parents, have to, we are your first example of respect. And we teach you how to respect by the way that we respect or don't respect you. So I could not agree with you more on that as well. And that is like one of the things that I thank God for teaching me as I've matured and am maturing in Him. You can't demand respect. It is something that's earned, and it's earned relationally, and it's earned through example and showing you a loving example of what respect is. And then I know we're about to have fun with this one right here. Ephesians chapter 6, and then the 4th verse. And it says, fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And that word provoke, what does it mean to you?
Just to purposely agitate me. That's it.
Plain and simple. Okay. Now, I already know you're feeling like you're not being heard. Agitates you to no end. And when you cannot make sense of a thing, and if I'm not always in that space to explain, it aggravates you to no end. But what else are some other things that provoke you?
If we've already cooled down about a situation and you're still going.
Okay.
Like, if I walk away, or I'm on one end of the couch, and you're on the other, and you're and da 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 and da 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 da. I don't want to hear that. Okay, I'm trying to calm down. You don't need to keep going. And that's another thing. Like, not even when you keep going after an argument, but it's like, okay, sometimes I understand that my tone when I say okay can be a little bit dismissive. In which I will say is because it's like most of the time it's just because I don't feel like arguing or I don't feel like hearing that. But when I say like, okay, Mom, I got it, okay, and you just keep going, like almost like a nagging type of way. Like I heard you the first 5 times, I got it.
Yes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. And we've had many discussions about this. Sometimes it's that exchange of communication with both of us that it kind of just that, it transitions from correction And it transitions from, an exchange or difference of opinion and correction to argument. And now strife is entered in. Instead of instruction, strife enters in. And it's like, like you said, it becomes like a nagging, and we're bouncing off of each other. And so, as the parent, though, it's my responsibility that, one, when you sense that spirit of strife coming in, just shut it down. Give it no space, say what you have to say and be done. And now anybody who knows me knows that I have a habit of repeating myself, and not even in a and not even in a negative, not even in a nagging way. Having been, teacher in an instructional role as teacher, administrator, that kind of thing for 20 plus years, and having to constantly repeat myself and finding different ways to say what I need to say, to make sure that what I'm saying is being understood, as well as even just, growing up and not being heard myself, not having anyone to, respect how I feel. So it's kind of like yeah, I didn't like over explain sometimes. And so I certainly understand that in a negative situation, how that really would be like, okay, really, you said it, be done, especially when it's already, like I said, temper's already flaring and it's already kind of like a heated situation. So yes, I have mentioned this before. Oftentimes we are very quick to quote, and I cannot tell you how many times, how many sermons I have heard. Honor your mother and father that your days are long upon the earth. Honor your mother and father that your days are long upon the earth. And I have yet to hear a sermon where someone preaches on provoke not your children to wrath, because you all are human beings just like we are. You have the same emotions that we have.
And that's another thing, like when I feel like you're allowed to express your emotions, whether that be by sometimes yelling or sometimes when you keep going, when you're allowed to express your emotions. However, I can't. I can't show my basic, because I've even talked it. That's one of the things, like I've ran it about times past. I don't do it anymore. Usually now I just journal. But times past to my friends about, it's like sometimes I feel like, okay, you can express your basic human emotions, but when I do it, when I express frustration in the slightest bit, all of a sudden I'm in trouble, or I'm being disrespectful.
And I honestly would have to say that's fair, and it's a balancing act, and it's really something that honestly God is even teaching me as I'm growing with you, because there is that fine line between I am grown, and I know you love when I say this. Y'all don't see the eyes rolling down. I'm just joking. But I am grown, and you are a child, young lady. And so there are some things that by the nature of me being grown, you cannot do. It's not a tit for tat. It's not you can you do everything that you see me do, or you have the liberty to do everything that you see me do. And even in those times when, yeah, I get frustrated and I might snap and I might yell or I raise my voice or what have you, it's not your place to turn around and yell back at me. That's where usually the leading of the Holy Spirit will check me. You didn't handle that right. You need to go back and apologize. But it's when you come back at me like we're equal and I'm on your level, that then that starts a whole nother war. It's So, but yes, you are very right. You and I am trying to understand that more and trying to give grace for that. And that's why sometimes I try to just walk away, give us both a moment and come back, because you do have those same emotions. You do get upset and you do get frustrated just like I do. You are a human being and you are not made out of steel. And you're not void of emotion either. And that's where, whether child or parent, learning how to properly handle those negative emotions so that it doesn't cause frustration to either you as my daughter, because that's never ever my heart's intention. I always want to be a source of strength to you and never a source of frustration. And learning how to communicate with one another. So I'm loving this. This is like so cool to me. I'm loving this feedback because these are real discussions that need to be had. Um, and then we're just going to wrap up with Titus 2, the 4th through 6th verses, where it says, older women are to teach the young women to love their husbands and children. We ain't worried about that yet. We can keep moving. They are to teach them to think before they act. Oh, yes, this one right there. Think before they act, to be pure, to be workers at home, to be kind, and to obey their own husbands, skipping that one until that time comes. Um, but you know what? You can watch me as you see me obey the Lord. Though he's not my husband, but that's my covering right now. So I guess we can kind of touch on that. But anyway, in this way, the word of God is honored also to teach young men to be wise. So when it talks about older women teaching the young, what does that look like to you? What things do you need to learn? What things do you feel like for you need to be taught?
I think if anything, first of all, like, not necessarily me because, not necessarily me, however, I think something that does need to be taught is the older women teaching the younger women how to respect men, period, because, I mean, we live in a culture where men are bashed and...
High five it. Yes, ma'am.
Men are bashed and degraded, and it's kind of, like, normalized now, so... You know, just teaching women, like, they're not your enemies.
Beautiful.
They're not. Not all men are the same. Not every man is going to be, and not every man is going to be the same. And also,
beautiful.
How to be pure, I want to say now, because we also live in a culture where parents don't really teach that anymore. They're kind of just like, well, as long as you're safe and I'm not in the house, I don't care. And that's not how it should be. You shouldn't be giving your child the go ahead to do something like that before marriage.
Yes.
And then wonder why, say for example, your child just got pregnant. I mean, you basically just encouraged it.
Agreed. So when you say just as long as you're in the house, you're saying basically it's okay for them to have sex and do whatever as long as they're doing it under the covering of the house.
Yeah.
It's okay, go ahead and smoke, drink, do whatever you want as long as you're under the covering of my house. At least I know you're here at home doing it versus out in the world. Is that what you're saying? I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. Yeah, and I totally agree. Being pure, pure with your body because it is the temple of the living God, being pure with your body even in terms of not just sex but even in terms of smoking, drinking, your thoughts, just your lifestyle as a whole. And you're absolutely right, that is something that is just assumed a lot of times, but it's not, sat down and just having those conversations. You're absolutely right. What about workers at home? What do you think that would entail?
Workers at home, kind of just like teaching your child the basics. Okay, and this goes for both like girls and boys because I don't believe in gender roles or anything like that. But teaching your children how to do laundry, teaching them how to cook for themselves, and teaching them how to clean properly, what chemicals not to mix with what. Like, say, for example, Windex with bleach, you can't mix those two. Stuff like that, because at the end of it, sadly, we do become grown at some point. We do have to go out into the world on our own, and I think it's just important.
Hear those words.
And it's just important to remember that at the end of the day, we still need to have those basic life skills. Now, granted, I might be calling my mom to help me with my taxes or how to make an appointment, but, at least I know how to do my laundry, at least I know how to cook, at least I know how to clean, stuff like that, because those are basic life skills that I've been taught, and even I've observed. Like, I remember sometimes when I was younger, just watching you do laundry or watching you cook and stuff like that, or you making me come in the kitchen and helping you, and all of that type of stuff, because like I said before, me personally, I'm not too far from college, unfortunately. Unfortunately.
No.
There are a lot of things that I've had to understand, like, my mom, she's not going to be right next to me all of the time. She's not just going to be in the other room. Hey, Mom, how do I do this? So there are just certain things that I've had to learn how to do now so that I'm not grown and still trying to figure it out.
I couldn't agree more. Amen. Although you kept saying the buzzwords that you weren't supposed to say, those words are taboo. But life, real life, I do realize that you have to grow up at some point. And you do, yeah, I know, right? But you do need to know how to take care of you. You do need to know how to be responsible. You do need to know how to function as a young woman, and not just a woman, but as a woman of God, because there is a distinction. And those are the things that we should be teaching you all, not just the ways of the Lord or the principles of the Lord, but also life skills, life practical skills, and how to function. And so, and you mentioned you don't believe in gender roles, but and I think I just want to make sure I'm understanding you, just for clarity. There are specific roles given by God as far as the husband being the covering.
Oh, of course.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, when I say gender roles, I mean that in the sense of like only your daughter should do laundry, like your daughter's sitting there doing everybody's laundry and your son is up in his room playing video games and Cheeto Puffs.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean by gender roles.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Or you got the son taking out the trash and he's, mopping floors or whatever, and the girl's sitting on the couch with her feet propped up or whatever. Right. Gotcha. Yes. Okay, because I was going to say there are definitely roles, assigned by God.
The head of the house.
Yes.
We're to submit to that covering, period.
All right. Okay. And then, so what effectively teaches you? Everybody learns different. So teaching you, is it just Rachel do da 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 da? Or is it you learning better by example? What effectively works for you in terms of your being taught those things?
I'm a visual learner. So like watching you do your laundry, that taught me how to do my laundry. Watching you cook certain things, that taught me how to cook certain things. So basically just by example.
Okay. So you're more kinesthetic and visual. By seeing and then hands-on.
Yes.
Is how you learn best. And I learn that same way. And I honestly, when it comes to this situation, is one of the best ways. We teach by example, plain and simple. We teach love. We teach nurture, we teach respect, we teach taking care of the home, we teach purity. Everything that we do as women and as mothers and as parents as a whole, it's done by example. That's the greatest teacher that there ever will be. Because, saying, hey, Rachel, do this, mop this, clean this, do that, dust the window, wipe the windows, dust the furniture, blah, 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 blah. And meanwhile, I'm sitting up there with my feet propped up on the couch. You missed a spot. That would be provoking. While we're talking about things that provoke. So certainly, and then just being hands-on, just that side-by-side, hey, we're cooking together. That side-by-side, hey, we're doing the laundry together. All right, you got that bathroom, I got this bathroom. Okay, I'm dusting in here, you get in there. I got my room, you have your room. And so just that everyday life interaction and teaching and bonding together. And so I just want to thank you, Rachel, for just taking a few minutes out of your time to, talk with me today and share what's on your heart and being able to hear from you, from your generation. And, these are the things that I love. This is how we learn. This is how we grow from generation to generation. And anyone that understands ministry, with our home being our first ministry, it's transgenerational. We learn from one another. No one generation has all of the answers. And it's only when we take the time to be transparent and to be open to what that other generation has to say that we then begin to bridge those generational gaps and lies that the devil is so strategically trying to tell right now, to put that divide there so that he can have control over our children versus us leading them and guiding them in the ways of the Lord. And when we don't show them respect and when we do provoke them to the point of not wanting to listen, we push them right into the hands of the enemy. And so I hope that this was helpful and useful. Again, that it will bring healing or the beginning of healing. And you know me, as always, I always want to encourage you to keep it real so God can deal and together we can heal. And Ray, do you have any closing remarks or anything you'd like to say?
Nope.
Okay. Well, again, I thank you, Princess, for being with me. And we hope that you enjoyed the podcast. And until next time, take care.